Everybody, we have the most interesting guy on the planet, in my opinion. His name is Jacob Dahl. You probably do not know of him because he is not selling anything. He is not trying to woo you into some sort of self-help course, even though he should be selling them. He is incredible, a young world traveler who has been and done just about everything, including leaving his home to go study Kung Fu in a Chinese monastery for years and all sorts of other fun things. I've been fortunate to have him in my life for over a decade now, and it has been my honor and pleasure to know this guy. And with that, Mr. Dahl, I wanted to start off by asking you a question that is so impressive to me, and that is, as a young 17-year-old man, you just said, I want to go to the United States. I live in Sweden, and I want to leave my home, the comfort of my family, and just wing it, go be a foreign exchange student for a full year with a complete stranger. And that sort of mindset then propelled you to go travel further and do all sorts of interesting things. How did that decision come about, and how did it change your life?
Well, that's a good question, sir. And thank you for that introduction. Well, I mean, traveling has always been a big part of my life ever since I was a kid. My parents always took us traveling somewhere at least once a year. That was always a priority. Instead of having nice cars and like fancy clothes and stuff, we would try to prioritize traveling and experiences. And I think that definitely sort of helped me to see the joy of traveling at a very young age. And then that just sort of started getting normal when you travel for 1 to maybe 5-6 weeks at a time, and you don't really get to know a place, you don't really get to know a country. So that just sort of propelled me into thinking that, well, if you can experience a country for a whole year, then surely you'll get to know it better and understand the people. So just that interest and that willingness to be able to explore a country fully just overcame any fear that I might have had.
To be able to have those kind of kahunas, those big balls as a 17-year-old boy to say, hey, I'm going from Sweden. I know English just enough to where I can speak it pretty fluently. And so the language thing was not an insecurity, but going to a whole new stranger's home, and to me it was a fascinating idea and impressive, and to see all these other foreign exchange students that do that too, and how it's had a profound impact on their lives. On some of them, I've heard horror stories where they hate it, but I am 100% positive you loved your experience.
Sure, I think I've had like probably the best foreign exchange student experience ever. So I'm definitely very grateful for that, and I was very fortunate where I ended up and who I ended up with, of course. So, I mean, that is definitely a huge part of it, and it wouldn't have worked the same if that didn't happen. But now that it did happen the way it happened, it just seems like, I mean, it was almost meant to be.
Oh, for sure, it was meant to be. And for those of y'all who know us, Jacob was a foreign exchange student at my home. What was it, 13 years ago now? I think
12.
12?
Yeah.
12 years ago. Yeah, it's amazing. And I was fortunate enough that we stayed extremely close throughout that time that he left. And you came back, and when you had left, we had purchased this farm, and then we built all of this, what I refer to now as our sanctuary. And what a fantastic ride. And one of the most impressive things for me, looking at you and just your life as being so impressive to me is that you just said, hey, I want to learn martial arts and I want to do it really well. And so where do I go? I'm going to go to a Chinese monastery in the middle of nowhere, in nowhere, China. I'm going to go do that. And I'm going to go for a year. I'm going to come back and visit, for a couple of weeks, and then I'm going to go back. Wow. Was that, impressive, living in a monastery for that long and doing that kind of training and being that disciplined. Can you give me an idea of what it was like to experience that discipline and how that ultimately carried over in your life when you got back home?
Well, try to sum up those like 2.5 years into like the core basics, but I mean, it's a very different experience for sure. And it definitely gives you a way of life that you're not used to and that most people around you haven't experienced. So it's definitely shaped
Most
me in ways
people
that
around
are
you? Nobody has experienced it almost.
yeah, like
Sorry to
it's
interrupt.
very hard.
I just find that funny.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, it's very hard for someone to relate to. So it's definitely something that's very hard. Like you have to try to explain it as well as you can, because most people haven't experienced it or like done anything similar to it. But it's very freeing. It gives you this calmness in your soul and this ability to trust yourself, trust your body, and trust like your biology as well. The way for your body to truly take care of itself if you treat it well and do the things that you need to. And as far as being able to push yourself and realizing that if you do push yourself to your limits, your body will tell you, and you learn to listen to it, and then you can keep like learning more about your body and experiencing it in new ways, which is very, very strengthening and very fascinating, because it's almost like this new body that you get.
Well, that's it's a lot of working out. Well, what was a typical day in a Chinese monastery studying Kung Fu?
So we would wake up at 6 o'clock and we would do Tai Chi. And then it was breakfast, and then we would do about 2.5, 3 hours of training, different basics, kicks, punches, weapons like staffs and swords. And when you've seen those Kung Fu movies like Eagle Claw and all that, we would train that once you got into a certain level, flips and jumps. And then was lunch. And then we would have a little break. And then it was like actual martial arts training where you practice punches, kicks, and like fighting in different types of martial arts styles. And then it was some more like Tai Chi, and then it was dinner. And then evening was free, or like you could do whatever you want, basically. And then at 10, you would probably go to sleep because you had to wake up pretty early.
That is fascinating that you did that for so long. So that experience, you go and you train with these martial arts masters every day practically, except for Sunday. And when you leave that experience, did that raise your confidence level and the belief in yourself that you could physically handle most situations that you might find yourself in?
Yeah, I feel very calm in most situations because I don't feel threatened. And I don't look threatening, which I think also helps, because I'm quite an unsurprising threat, I think. And I have practiced different things that most people don't think about when they fight. They think about punches, kicks, and I've learned different styles and different techniques that are just like a bit dirty and cheap, but they work. So I definitely feel very secure about that.
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate enough to be able to train with you because we had our private lessons from an 8th degree black belt, and he was a pretty proficient in quite a few different martial arts. And We did that several times a week for many years, and all the times that you came to visit, it was a real pleasure to be able to wrestle with a kung fu almost master. Pretty damn good. And that was really fun. It was fun to get my eye ripped open that one time, which was fantastic. I just think it's great that at such a young age you utilize that time so wisely, where most people in the United States, as soon as they get out of high school, they got to hurry up and go to college, hurry up and go to work for a big corporation, hurry up and start their life,
Find a
hurry up and
spouse,
push their
get
time.
married. Yeah.
Right. You just
Just hurry up
doing
for
what,
it, yeah.
what society has told people that they need to do. And you took a completely different path and said, no, I'm going to finish my last year of high school in a little small town in Texas. And then I am going to go off and explore the world. I'm going to spend 2.5 years in a monastery. I'm going to travel some more. And you have this amazing experience to build the foundation of the rest of your life now, which you have started to do now that you are 30. And I just wish that I had a magic wand that I could just go, oh, everybody go, leave your home for a little while, go get a backpack and just travel, just go do it. It builds character like nothing can. You build confidence in yourself. You learn how to deal with people that you cannot speak with because you don't know the language. You end up making friends. You realize that everywhere in all these different cultures, people are very friendly. Most people are very willing to help you. And it is a very enlightening experience to see outside of the propaganda that's been given us that, oh, this place is dangerous, or this place is bad, or this place is, and you realize people are just people everywhere, and everywhere around the world, there are little pockets of places you don't want to find yourself at nighttime. And, that is with practically every town in the United States, and it's same way around the world. And we feel like we get trapped in this little bubble. I'm so glad that you are one of the few people that I know that have had that kind of experience. The only person I know that's had a Chinese monastery experience. So to answer my question, the discipline that you got from that Chinese monastery, has that helped you now in the starting to build the foundations of your life back in your home country of Sweden?
Well, it's
no?
helped me more than anything in having the mental strength and that discipline to sort of find myself in this life, to come to terms with what I can change and what I can't change, and what my priorities should be within that sort of realm, and to just have that sort of mental focus and clarity to not get sucked into distractions or different sort of ideas that you might just become so accustomed to hearing that you might start believing them yourself, but just really stay strong in yourself and true to your beliefs. That more than anything, but also in just the discipline, how to work and how to keep building my body and keep training. In that life that you're not really comfortable having.
Did you find that if you would not have had that those years training in a monastery, would you find it a lot more difficult to deal with the stresses of life, especially now that you are a teacher in Sweden?
Yeah, for sure. Like just the stress of the job would definitely be enough to to get you to snap or to just like get real angry, but you can control yourself, you can calm yourself more easily. And also in just day-to-day life, living in an environment that is quite stressful, you find calmness and peacefulness and the discipline to just keep being strong, keep being healthy, keep training, and keep exploring. Keep exploring like all possibilities.
Yeah, I think that's great. What I've never, in our 12 years of being very closely associated with each other, I've never worried about you, not one time, except for the time that I didn't hear from you, because I have to tell this story because it's one of my favorite ones of all time. As I was worried, I didn't hear from you for about 3 weeks. I was like, oh my God, what's happening to him? He's in China. Looks like I'm gonna have to go to China to rescue Jacob. And then all of a sudden I get this email that just says, hey, sorry I haven't been in contact. I was snowboarding off the Great Wall of China and lost my cell phone. My bad. I'm like, man, that's the best I lost my phone story ever. I told a million people that.
Don't forget it was a New Year's party as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what people do. You know, you snowboard off of the Great Wall and lose your phone at a New Year's party in China. I just think that's great.
Everyone should do that.
I lose my phone around the farm all the time. I don't know if that counts. What's so fascinating about you is that you have this broad experience from farm life, from all these travels, to having this kind of carefree sort of attitude that has carried over and helped me in my life in thinking, oh, all right, well, if Jacob can be calm and cool, then I can be calm and cool. If he can do it, I can do it. There's no reason to be so stressed out about all the little ins and outs. Just take a deep breath, have a little meditation, and then figure things out. And
I would say that traveling is probably something that really helps with that, because it gives you this clarity of what is important in life and what do you need to really focus on and what makes you truly happy. Because when you're out traveling, you don't have a lot of like the day-to-day comforts, but you're still super happy. And if you do that for long enough, you're really going to start to recognize patterns in what makes you happy and what just takes away from it, or what distracts you or makes you think you're happy. So
well, that's
one of the amazing reasons. Yeah, I think people should travel.
Well, when we met each other, I was traveling for some business, going to South America. We made a pit stop in Panama and asked you to meet us there. So you flew over and met us in Panama. But before, was it in Costa Rica or Nicaragua? You were somewhere and you just hung out at a beach. I just thought that was great, because I asked you when we met up, it's like, well, what have you been doing? He was like, well, I've just been sleeping on the beach.
Surfing and drinking from coconuts and just, living life. It's pretty good. Everyone should try that for at least a couple of months. Just traveling around and sleeping on the beach.
I got the biggest kick out of that, because I thought, all right, well, I'm traveling on business. I'm staying in these, really nice hotels, and you come and meet us, you join us and get you a room at this super fancy ass hotel in Panama. And first thing you say is, man, this is bad. This is almost as good as this bed is almost as good as that beach. I was thinking, wow, such a allows for a different perspective on what is possible. Like how can you just to open up and be so free and free spirited to think, I'm not in danger here. I can look around. It's a beautiful beach. The people are friendly. I love the sound of the waves. These people have beer and they've offered me some, so I'm going to have some beer with them and have a great time. And then you do have a great time. You have no place to stay because you didn't even care to go try to find a place. I'm just guessing because that seems like your MO. You just,
Sometimes, yeah.
and you just say, hey, that's what I've been doing, hanging out. I was like, well, a shower might be in order, but other than that, you're okay. Well, and out of all your travels, when you go back home, you have almost nobody to relate to. Even though Europeans travel a lot, they don't have your depth and experience of travel and living in different countries for extended periods of time, like living in the US off and on for 12 years, and then, a full year in your formative years, China, 2.5 years, and then all your other travels. And you go back to Sweden and you get a job in your cozy, quaint village as a teacher. What sort of culture shock is it to be back living, quote, the normal life? Is it?
Say that the culture shock is that most people expect you to be quite the same, even though you've been gone for so long, that you should share a lot of their beliefs and a lot of their just trust in systems and things like that. And it's very hard to see that the place you grew up is quite literally exactly the same as every other place, that people think that their home is the normal and that is the safest and best way possible. And when you try to explain that to people, that it might not be, we could probably start changing things around here and just to focus on our own place instead of thinking about the world all the time. It's very hard to get through to people and for them to see that the cultures are.
What you just said, don't worry about the broader world. Doesn't that go to the whole idea of our own personal spiritual journeys and knowing ourselves? Like we are our own sovereign being. So if we work and help ourselves and grow in ourselves, and that those waves of our progress and those positive ripples, they affect our immediate circle. Like that's how you end up changing the world, by your example, by your positive energy. And because ultimately it's only you can change and how you perceive everything that happens to you in life. Yeah, and it seems like what you just said can, as a collective society in Sweden or here in Texas or in even cities,
China and wherever,
everybody else, they all think basically the same thing, and they start worrying, and everybody's a demon. There's a monster around every corner, and but those places aren't really working on themselves at all. They're not working really on their communities in such a way that that's really empowering for everyone or as many people as possible. So it's kind of almost
don't want to assume
like a mirror image. The individual is the mirror image of the broader society for the most part.
Yeah, and I mean, most people don't want to take immediate responsibility for their surroundings and the community that they live in. They feel safer handing it off, which just gives power to people that probably shouldn't have it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's never a good thing, and it just makes people too comfortable, and then they will just keep seeking that comfort all the time because they're afraid to go out of their comfort zone or try something different, something unfamiliar.
Well, I think it's like that documentary I sent you last night, which I think is just wonderful. And because we've always had a practice of watching documentaries throughout our relationship, and I think what you just said, most people don't want to look at their own communities, which means most people don't want to look at themselves and look at how they can better themselves. Most people would probably find that documentary, The Real Dr. Fauci, and be really offended because their identity has been soaked up in what has been sold to them over the past several years. And then to find out what they believed about what has happened over the past few years was not entirely true. And a lot of it was complete manipulation of the masses. And it is pretty amazing to actually see that and people's reaction to it. And I think that boils down to why I'm so impressed with you is that you can look at your own actions and go, okay, well, maybe I feel my anxiety getting high about this. Okay, well, I see what the news is saying about this, and it's, I've seen the news around the world. The
Yeah,
news around the world is always BS. They're
yeah.
always selling it from one bias point. And
And
is that
people
how
always
you?
have a tendency to believe the news that they have, like that they have been provided with. It's a trustworthy news, and if something goes against that, then that news should be untrustworthy. But it's the same for those people, and there's just no logic to just trusting the news. You have to look at the facts. I mean, people are so critical of the sources, they should be critical of the actual information. Like, is this reasonable information? Does this seem right? Can I verify this? And if the answer is
Right, and sometimes it's not the messenger. Who cares really who the messenger is if they're telling you credible information that's documented and that is provable? Who cares who the messenger is
yeah,
if
exactly.
that
But
is
people
the
should,
case?
you can
Yeah,
see it
verify.
in schools and everything that you're taught to be very critical of sources, but you're not taught to be just open to information and take it at face value. Instead, you should be skeptical and then assume the position that you were given at a very young age.
Yeah, so you're right. People have been taught to not view things really critically, and I think that's a shame. We fall victim to, even though most people realize that the news is,
Skewed,
people gripe about
to say the
it.
least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they still feel like they're gaining enough information out of that news to make intelligent decisions and they believe they're informed based on the spin that they've been told. Even though they say, I don't believe this, or this is bad or something, they still believe they're getting the truth somehow. Like they can filter out that bias for themselves, and that is not the case.
No, and if you like, as you get to travel, you see how that shapes cultures around the world and how they perceive different people and people from other places just by how the news media angles stuff. And it's quite sad to see how entire countries can be swept away and be led into the same sort of biased just based on the news.
Or taking brave men and women and having them go out and fight and kill other brave men and women who both sides believe they're doing the right thing, and all they're doing is fighting over some sort of greed, some sort of power struggle between old men.
Yeah, I mean, war is a place where young men who don't hate each other go to kill each other over old men who do hate each other. It's just like,
right.
so sad.
The old men.
And everyone always, and the sad part is like an even sadder part almost, except for, I mean, countless of deaths, is the fact that people don't seem to be able to really take themselves out of that situation that they're born in and say, okay, maybe this is a broader picture. Maybe this is not a particularly like unique situation. if this pattern keeps happening over and over in all different places of the world, then it's a system that uses this to its advantage. And you gotta just stop and think like, all right, who am I in this? Why do I have the positions that I have? And is there something that could be detrimental or at least a bit dangerous to humanity from having this viewpoint? I think that is a very important question to ask. And a lot of people don't do it because they only see this little bubble that they grew up in, which protects them from seeing broader truths, if nothing else.
Yeah, one thing that just popped into my head, and I'm not sure why. I guess because you're in Europe, you're on the other side of the world, and we have been propagandized in the United States to believe that, a great example is to have fluoride in the water, that it's okay to medicate people with industrial waste that is an acid, and Europe as a whole was, we're not putting in fluoride, the industrial waste into our water. You people are crazy. We tried, the West tried to, or the United States, and these big firms tried to get y'all to do it too. And then these big studies come out. Harvard did a big, massive study on how fluoride dumbs down the population. And I asked a dentist 6 or 7 years ago, I said, everybody drinks water at different rates. Not everybody drinks their 8 ounces, their 8 glasses of 8 or 12 ounces a day. Some kids will drink just a little. Some kids drink water all day long. They're all getting medicated at different rates. And the European teeth are, y'all have a lower cavity rate and lower dental problems than in the United States. And I'm like, yeah, of course they do. They don't have fluoride. And that is a good example of how you can be propagandized into that. And that dentist said, well, the American Dental Society said, this is great. This is what we should do. And he just gung ho, like he'd never even considered it before. Like, yeah, duh, of course fluoride is great for you. And you're like, well, you know where that fluoride's coming from? No, I have no idea. I have no idea that it's chemical industrial waste. They have no place to put it. It's toxic. If it spills out anywhere, whenever they're adding it to the water, well, you got to have hazmat suits on and be out there to clean it up. But that goes to what you're saying, the propaganda of your community being told by the news, by the authorities, like, hey, this one thing is good for you, so just do that thing.
They're always exposing each other, like, oh, look at what we're exposing about this news media on the other side of the world, or about this government. Right. And I mean, so you can obviously trust that we have the people's best at heart, and they just keep doing that. Right. And keep having, like, building this false sense of just trustworthiness.
Well, I think your travels have opened your eyes up to see that the governments are not our friend, and I think that is a very valuable tool to have and a good eye-opening experience at such a young age, because what that does is teach you, and has taught you and most people that have traveled extensively, that you have to be self-reliant. You have to rely on your own skills. You have to rely on your ability to make friends and be able to have some persuasive ability, have an open mind, have an open heart. Know that it is not the majority of the people in that country or that region. It is just the powers that be. And those powers that be do not have the interest of the people at heart, never have, and never will.
And you just, as you become so accustomed to it, it's easier to see in every place how they use it and how they manipulate people to keep buying into this insane system where they keep losing, they keep getting the short end of the straw, but they never seem to reflect on it or realize that the game is rigged. They just say, oh, well, this is what happens. This is what happens. This is what happens. And
Right.
it's
Well,
amazing to me to see how people just keep working in every part of the world, no matter where, just like keep going, and not stop, reflect, no matter how good or quote bad their lives are. And it just goes to show that it has nothing to do with material wealth or anything like that in this world. If your mind is still captured within this certain box of how things should work, then you'll never be free.
man, you're so right about that. And if you're not free in your heart and your mind, uh, and if you haven't been working on yourself, self-improvement in every way, and you fall into this trap of, I'm going to get up in the morning, I go to work, I do this thing, which all that's admirable. That's fine. But what that is purposefully designed to do is to keep you from having too much leisure time, so you can work on yourself, so you can meditate, so you can think, so you can
Are
start
reflecting
exercising.
on, yeah, why do we keep this system? Why do we keep having like these men and women in power at such a small proportional rate? And why do we keep having everything in this world? Actually, I think we're at a time for humanity to really start reflecting deeper on how we actually live our lives, and how we as a collective society have some sort of a consciousness that steers us towards something.
I think you're right. And there's movements going on now around the world that are, bringing community back. Like what we are working on here is we have a couple that the male is from Switzerland and the woman's from here, but they've been in Australia and Europe for a long time, and they just moved back here, and they're going to come here and very likely live here at the sanctuary and help us with permaculture that we've been doing already. We got all this permaculture, you've worked out here on all that stuff, but to work and build a community bigger and broader in our Sunday gatherings. And I just think that is fun. I think it's great. And to have more, and we keep getting more and more calls, but to spotlight our situation and building community of self-reliance, and creating and growing your own food, and having your own water sources, and to create the leisure time that's not stuck in front of some meaningless Netflix show, or, in your spare time, instead of having meaningful conversations like we have done countless times, instead they're just spending their time frivolously and just zoning out because, life is stressful.
At social media, or just being completely
stupid TikTok videos. People hardly even have the ability to pay attention to anything more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that is also something
So
I come
these
from traveling. Like,
communities,
find that,
to finish that thought,
few minutes, sorry.
to finish that thought real fast, is that these communities are forming all over the world, and they are forming now. I just got finished watching a podcast this morning, and it was that, you remember that guy from Entourage? I forget his name. Andrian, the main guy, the main character fella. You remember the movie Entourage?
No, Entourage.
Where they were in the group of guys. He was an actor, and he was Hollywood. Yeah, he was in Hollywood. He was a Hollywood actor, and he had all his buddies living with him, and they were just living it up. Well, a guy like that goes and he's doing the same thing. I'm watching this podcast. I wasn't expecting to see him. I just was following this one particular couple that I enjoy listening to from time to time. And he was a guest, and he is starting his own community, breaks away from Hollywood and says, that's not the life. There is no life in that kind of madness. I want to, and I just couldn't help but smile. I was like, man, you're one of the many that are starting to, like, there's an awakening going on. Like, there has to be more. I don't want to eat poison food. Like, now all the cows in the United States, are getting injected with the vaccination. It's crazy. And so that's
it's
gonna,
definitely growing like
so
at
now
such a high rate.
all the meat, yeah, all the meat that you're eating, so is going to be poison. So now all these communities are springing up around the world, and I think that is a great awakening that you were just speaking to.
Yeah, for sure. It's happening, and you can see that a lot of people are starting to question, at least, or not believe the main narrative to such an extent. But we still have a long road ahead, I think.
For sure.
Looking at, I mean, if we were all this, if we had all the same sort of oppression all around the world, it would be a lot faster. But now we also have to contend with how is this country doing it, and how are we doing it, and are we competitive towards each other? Do we have sort of moral different grounds where we have to sort of try to outmaneuver each other at all times to show how much more morally pure we are? So we
Right.
still have a lot of ego and insecurities to overcome through this journey, I think, but it's definitely starting, which is quite nice to see. But at the same time, we have hurdles like we've had the last couple of years, where everything from traveling to go see your loved ones to just leisure has been greatly restricted. And to someone that spent most of their 20s traveling, it has been pretty frustrating. Because it's
Well,
like an itch to find
frustrating
yourself.
for just in our relationship, because there has not been a year in the past 12 years, except for the past 2.5 or so, that we haven't spent a considerable amount of time with each other within the year.
Yes.
And now that had to come to an end. And luckily, last time we were able to see each other was we went to Italy to see our other boy who lives in Italy, and that was fantastic. That was shortly before the lockdowns. But wow, what a horrible, horrible thing that is, to think that some people believe in this world that, oh, you're going to cause me harm because you might have something. Like, you can't, if there is something that dangerous, nobody's going to be able to escape it, and your silly little mask is not going to do anything to protect you.
And like, obviously it is all over the world already, so why stop people from traveling? It's not like it's gonna just change anything.
Oh,
But
no,
I still can't go to the US just because something that
yeah, but unless you get penetrated. Yeah, you have to get penetrated. Your flesh has to get penetrated. You have to be actually raped against your will to be able to come visit. That's insane, because we just got back, Jill, my wife and I just get back from Guatemala. We chose not to get injected and have my flesh penetrated by a phallic object that I did not want inserted into me. And
the substance that I definitely didn't want inserted into me.
right, and so we were able to come back into the country with no problems. They took off that restriction on U.S. citizens, but still require it for the rest of the world to come here, and that includes family and friends and anybody else that you want to have. To ask for that kind of permission from an authoritarian government is pretty wow. It's just like, wow, come on, people. But a lot of people do think, well, that doesn't affect me. I don't have any friends in Europe, or I don't
maybe even
anybody
worse,
coming
they're
to
like, well, I don't mind getting like taking the injection. I don't mind. Like, they shouldn't do it, but I don't mind, so they can keep doing it.
right.
Like, they can't force me, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So all right, they can force me. Just that mindset that it's all right this time. This is an exception. This is an exception, even though it keeps happening over and over again. Like, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, well, I found it crazy that people would put trust in a company that has paid the largest legal fine, criminal fine in human history. That they would trust those people with their bodies, and then then you have another one that knowingly put carcinogens in baby powder. Like,
Yeah,
oh, okay. Yeah, you would do that to babies, so, but I should trust you to
protects my life.
forcefully penetrate my flesh to, yeah, that's just the most absurd thing. I can't wrap my mind around how fear captures people in such a way
Yeah. No, it's
that they'll believe and trust anything. Or people that don't understand the history of what's going on, and uh,
once again, they're so caught up in their lives that they don't take a time to just stop and reflect. They just think, all right, this is happening now, then I need to react to it, instead of just taking a step back and looking at the broader picture, looking at yourself outside of the situation. And then you'd find a pretty good sense of calmness about you.
since you spent so much time in China, and China continues to have these draconian lockdowns, what is, from you being there for so long, is their mindset that much different than anywhere else in the world, that they would just simply acquiesce so easily?
No, people around the world are pretty much the same, I would say, no matter where you are. They all have the same sort of core values of what they want out of life and how they think that they should treat people. And then within those core values, there are a lot of different just ways to go about it throughout the world, for sure. I mean, we have a lot of crazy stuff going on in different cultures. But what they all seek, or what they all have as a goal through these different systems and through these different types of oppression, is usually the same. And that's what people hold on to and believe in, which gives us a lot of common ground to actually have something important built.
I just wonder if this well, he's not new, but this Chinese president Jinping or whatever whatever his name is, he's reminiscent of a Maoist type thing. It seems like that sort of mentality is ingrained in that big chunk of Asia, and that
it's definitely like
sad.
So spread out, and it's been like the only predominant thing. So you can definitely see it ripple through a lot of the honor that fills a nation. Like, you have America, it's a very honorable nation, right? And it has its honor in its military, and it has its honor in its flag and its history. And China is also a very proud country. So they have used the same sort of tactics, I would say, to indoctrinate their people into believing the same way that US has used it to indoctrinate their people, if you so will. The same way Sweden has used it to indoctrinate its people into thinking that their way of thinking is actually theirs, and it's pure and it's true and it's honorable. And if it's not even good, then it's honorable.
You have to do this for your country. Yeah, you're doing this for your country and your society, your fellow man.
Yeah, and it's for the greater good, or it's for the cause, or it's for something that you need to believe in, because as people, we all need to believe in something. And back in the day, it was more religion. Now you can see it more being government throughout the world, and different ideologies and different just subscriptions to any sort of belief that fulfills your ego, fulfills your sense of like righteousness.
Yeah, it's pretty strange. It makes me want to rip out the speech of the Atlas Shrugged character Hank Reardon whenever he's given his speech in front of the court. Makes me just want to rip that out and just go cuddle up with it and sleep. Say it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's a strange world that we live in. But luckily, we are getting these big movements of people doing self-exploration work, where meditation, yoga, exercise, good, meaningful conversations, people building communities. Little farms are starting to sprout up everywhere. people are starting to understand permaculture. Permaculture is something that started being talked about among younger people more and more and more here. That is, I mean, the vast majority still don't have a clue, but it is starting, you're starting to see it more in random podcast, and people will mention it and you're like, oh, wow, this is great. Because we've been doing permaculture here at the farm for, geez, like 8 years. And we've been farming, we got one of the largest aquaponic facilities in the world here. And we've been doing this for a while. And to see what we have been doing to start catching root, not only here, but around the world, is a very positive sign. And I hope that it continues, and I hope that it's not squashed.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see some attempts at trying to squash it, but I think that it's starting to get such a ripple effect. It will probably get out of hand, or hopefully get out of hand soon, and just consume the entire world in this new awakening.
I think that people are starting to find themselves so detached because they go to work, they don't have any deep, meaningful relationship. Most people don't have deep, meaningful relationships with their coworkers. So they get home, they don't get to see their family very much. And when they do, the vast majority, sit around and watch TV, eat a pizza, and get up in the morning and do it all over again. And in the meantime, they're scrolling their social media to try to feel some sort of connection with somebody, and then they find themselves alone. There's a lot of loneliness, even in big cities. You have all these people around you, but you still feel alone. And the building of these communities is really, I think, has the potential to make some really big changes in how people see their individual governments in whatever country they live in.
Yeah, and try to also
Yeah.
expand and see that collective consciousness, that we just need to have some sort of priorities together. Like, what do we want as a society? What do we want for humanity? Just looking forward for thousands of years. I mean, we have great potential. What do we want to use it for?
Man, that is so true.
Yeah.
If you could tell any young person who has not traveled or has not done the things that you've done to build your blossoming awakening, what would it be?
It would be to really go for the things that you've thought about, because everyone has ideas that are just great for traveling, and that I think everyone has a destination that they would want to experience, and that experience is never going to be exactly what you thought it was going to be, but it's always going to give you more than what you need, and it's always going to be something that you will always have with you. So
you
at
just
a young age, you need to see the world, and you need to see it both with somebody and alone, I would say, to just truly find yourself, find that calmness, find that peacefulness, and explore. I mean, let yourself explore your mind while you explore the world. It's a good combination.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that I would say that just from an outsider looking at you, that is probably what set you on the path of your own spiritual journey. Is although if you're traveling and being alone, you had to find yourself, and then you look at yourself in the mirror and go, oh crap, I think I have to do some work on myself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're not always going to be happy with what you see, but
No,
but it's always
I look
good
in the
once you
mirror
see
and
it again, and it's a little bit better.
right.
That work is
Well,
never not worth it.
And you always have to realize that you don't always have to do everything in just one. You're not going to fix yourself in 15 minutes. You're not going to be able to go sit outside in the grass and have a little yoga experience or a quiet meditation or wrap up in a good philosophical book and And then all of a sudden, bam, I'm fixed. Look at me. I'm all good now. I just did my 30 minutes of yoga or working out or whatever. No, it's a lifetime of work, and you have to.
If humans didn't need a lot of time to work on themselves, we wouldn't live for as long as we do. I mean, we have a lot of stuff to figure out. And
Yeah.
I mean,
And I like how
mindfulness is
Graham
an amazing
Hancock
journey,
says,
so why not experience it to its fullest?
well, you set me on the path of getting to know Graham Hancock a number of years ago, and since I've read his books and absorbed everything I can from him, and he had it right. I believe that we're a species with amnesia, and I think that is absolutely true. And I was very thankful of you turning me on to Graham Hancock, because it made me think about humanity in a historical perspective at large, to think that we are a species with amnesia, because it seems to be true. We don't know why or how the pyramids were built. We just guess. We don't know why there are pyramids all around the world on these ley lines and all these different things. Everything's guesstimations. Finding Göbekli Tepe in 12,000 years old place, rewrites history of how we understood it or thought we did. There's so many things that we don't know about our own species, which directly reflects again of we don't know ourselves.
Yeah, we don't know why we're here. We don't know what we're doing. We just keep trying to find things to along to believe to, that are sort of provided for us.
Entertain ourselves. Yeah, and then we get wrapped up in entertainment. Like, we just got to watch these TikTok. I got to distract my mind. I don't want to go inside my mind. It's kind of like the Kerry Mullis, who invented the PCR test. He said it was never made to detect anything of whether you're sick or not, but you can find anything inside of the human body. Anything you want is inside the human body with enough cycles. So that makes you believe in the Indian philosophy that we are the universe, we are everything, because everything is inside us. So we don't want to go search inside us. We'd rather scroll this TikTok or Facebook.
Quite amazing that we're a species that can name ourselves, we can reflect on ourselves, we can know that we are and tell each other that we are, and we don't even want to ask ourselves why we are. I mean, people do not want to, in a lot of places today, do not want to answer that question, at least in their own thoughts. They either want to use some sort of scripture or some sort of things that are just, I mean, provided for them.
Well, I hope that as you grow and mature and you continue down your spiritual and self-exploration path, you have a lot to offer the world, a lot to offer your immediate friends and family. And I think there are so many great things that are ahead of you. I'm so excited for the years ahead of you. And I appreciate you imparting some of your wisdom to us today and spending time with me again. It's like you're sitting right here in the grand study. But we're not having a cigar and a glass of wine, but we'll have to remedy that as soon as the ridiculous restrictions get lifted for so stupid. Well,
pleasure,
well,
pleasure joining you today, sir. It was great.
Well, thank you, and we will definitely have to do this again. There are many other topics that I know we would both enjoy exploring, that we have done many times together, that I think would a lot of people would find value in. And if you are in the local area and you like these conversations every Sunday at 1:30, we are here, and you can obviously find us at themysticsofTexas.com. And we're at every alternative, BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, DTube, all of them. So thanks again.